This video is going to focus on branching forms. Now, a branching form is a form that has multiple parts to it, so students don't have to go to every single section of the form. They can skip things. So if you're doing a review, let's say you have 3 objectives that you want to focus on with your students, and you want to check and make sure that a student knows how to do each one of those 3 objectives. And if they don't know how to do it, you want to give them a little review tutorial on how to do it and have them do some practice questions. Well, you can do a branching form to accomplish that, and then each of the objectives that the student knows how to do, they can skip that form or that part of the form and move on to the parts that they don't know how to do very well. So that's kind of the idea behind a branching form. Now, this example form that I've created has 2 separate branches. So that's basically like 2 objectives that the students have that they're going to be kind of tested on in this review. And then if they don't know how to do it, they're going to move on to practice problems and a tutorial on how to do that particular topic. Now, for this branching form, if you take a look at what I've done here, I started out with my standard question to begin with, which is the last name, and then I move on to my branch questions. Now, what I like to do is I like to create 2 questions for each branch so that if a student gets lucky on the first one, or if there's a different way to word questions or things like that, I want more than 1 question to test the student's knowledge. So for each of my branches, I've actually created a separate question. Now, I will tell you that each question that you make that's going to move to one branch or another needs to have its own page. So I can't take these 2 questions and keep them on the same page. I have to put a page break in between. Now, to put a page break in, what you would do is once you're done with the question, so if I'm done with this question here, I would go to this drop-down menu and I would just hit page break, and it would make a page break in between, and then I could write the next question. So that's what I did here is I did this first question, and then I added a page break, and then I did my second question. And then before my third question, I added another page break, and so on and so forth. Now, the questions themselves, there are 2 different types of questions which will create a branching form. The first one is multiple choice, and then the second one is choose from a list. So that would be a different type of a branching form, a choose from a list. Let's say that I had 4 topics and I wanted my students to pick which one they wanted to learn about on that day. I could use a choose from a list, and they would have a list of those 4 options, and when they picked one, it would take them to a section that would focus on that part or that topic that they chose from a list. So you could do something like that. But to make a branching form, what you're going to do is next to the multiple choice, there's a little box, and that box says go to the next page based on answer. And if you check that box, it's going to create a branching form for you to use. What happens when you do a branching form is each of your multiple choice answers or each of your answers that are from that list have an extra little box next to it, and this box figures out what page it's going to go to. So if a person answers answer choice A for this first question, then I want them to continue to the next page. And if they answer any of the other questions, and I actually did this one wrong, so I'm going to fix this right here. If they answer any of the other questions, I'm going to have them go to any of the other answers. I'm going to have them to go to page 5, which is where the beginning of this branch takes place. Okay, now one thing about doing this is you can't set these up until after you've set up all of your questions and all of your branches. So one of the things you have to do before you try to create a branching form is have it well mapped out what it's going to look like. So what I've done and what I've mapped out is basically this. And I had to create this map before I put in those different values. So my map looks like this. I wanted 2 questions for branch 1. So I did question 1, added a page break, then did question 2. Then I wanted to make 2 questions for my second branch or my second objective. So question 3 was the question for the second branch, and then question 4 was the second question for that second branch. Okay, then after that, I made a page for each of my branches. So I had a page for branch 1, and I had a page for branch 2. And then to finish it off, I had a final page that was just a sum up type of a page. Now, I set that all up before I went and did any of the multiple choice, like where it will go type of things, because if you don't, you can't choose go to page 5 if you don't have a page 5 yet. So you need to set everything up first, and then you can do this. All right. And then to create this, basically what you're going to do is, so like here where it says continue to next page, I know that if they get it correct, I want them to go to the next page. If they get it wrong and all of these answer choices are wrong, then they're going to go to page 5, which is where I titled my branch 1 tutorial. And it gives you an idea of what that is. Branch 1, like if you're not sure, it'll tell you what each of the names of your pages are. So I want them to go to branch 1 if they get it wrong. One other thing that I want to show you that I've done is I've created an additional answer choice that says, I don't know how to do this well enough, so I am going to watch the tutorial. I don't want students to guess and get lucky for both of these questions and then move on. This is a review, so if they don't know how to do it, I want them to review it and look at whatever the tutorial is that I've made. Now that I have everything set up, here's basically how it works. When a student comes to this question and they read the answer choices, by the way, I've set up the answer choices so that you know which one is correct while I'm going through this tutorial, so that I make sure that I'm going to the right places. Obviously, you wouldn't put in little parentheses here that this is correct, and the program didn't do this. I wrote this so that I knew what answer choices to go to while I was testing this to make sure that it worked. Okay, so now what'll happen is if they choose the correct answer for this test question, they will go to the second test question. So I've set it up like this. If they get this one right, they're going to go to question 2. And if they get question 2 right, then they're going to go to question 3. Now, if they've made it to question 3, that means that they get to skip branch 1 altogether. And then they're going to check on branch 2. If they get this one correct, they'll move to question 4. And if they get question 4 correct, they're going to move all the way to the end. Now, if I have students that get everything right and they move all the way to the end, that's great. And then what I've done is on the final page, I just make sure that I check their understanding a little bit. And if they didn't understand the material, then they can identify that they didn't, and I can go and talk to them throughout the course of the class after they've submitted this. And then in the confirmation page, I'm going to give them an assignment so that those who finish fairly early because they didn't need to do the tutorials will have something else for them to do. Now, let's say the student gets this question wrong. Instead of going to question number 2 down here, what will happen is they will move all the way down to branch 1. And on branch 1, I've made a video, and I didn't make the video, I just found a video and put it here, for a little tutorial, and then I went through and had a couple of questions for my students to do. And then once they're finished, the other thing that you can do with branching forms is instead of having questions go to specific pages, you can have pages go to specific pages. So once they're done with branch 1, I want them to go and check the practice questions for branch 2. And those start on page 3, which is question 3. So after they're done with page 5 here, and I know this might be a little bit confusing, but this page right here, my branch 1 page, is on page 5. So once they're done with page 5, I'm going to have them move back up to page 3 so that they can look at the other 2 questions for my second branch. So I've done this over here at the bottom of this. So it says that they're going to go to question 3. So then after they do this, they're going to go back up to question 3 and answer question 3. If they get question 3 correct, they're going to move to question 4. And if they get question 4 wrong, then they're going to move to branch 2. And they're going to have to watch the tutorial and answer the questions for branch 2 as well. Now, once they're done with branch 2, it'll send them to my final page. Now, to just show you what this looks like, I wanted to just run through a branching form and do this. So let me go through this. I'm going to put my last name in here. I'm going to get question 1 correct. And if I get test question 1 correct, that should take me to question 2. And I'm going to get question 2 wrong, and I'm not going to actually get it wrong. I'm going to put this right here, which says, I don't know how to do this well enough. And because I did that, now I'm in branch 1. So for this, I can go to branch 1, I can click on the video tutorial, and then I can answer these questions. And hopefully I get all of my questions correct. And then once I'm done with those questions, I'm going to continue. And when I continue, I'm going to go up to question 3. And question 3 is the second branch of my tutorial. And I'm going to get the second branch, I'm going to get both of these questions right. And if I get them both right, then instead of going and looking at the tutorial for that second branch, it will continue me to the final page. So I got to skip the second branch because I got both of those correct. And then they'll click submit, and they're done with that form. And so that's a branching form. And what it does, to sum up, is it basically takes and it allows students to have multiple paths that they can do, and they don't necessarily have to cover every single topic. They only have to cover the topics that they need to cover. So that's it for this branching form tutorial. I hope that this is helpful for those of you who want to try to do some branching forms in your class, to do some differentiated instructions and different things like that.